I'm Corey Johnson for Towleroad.com with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. We're here at the LGBT Center in New York City. And Senator Gillibrand, today you have sort of a town hall meeting-like atmosphere with the gay and lesbian community here in New York. Why did you decide to have this here today to talk to LGBT New Yorkers?
Well, I think gay rights issues are very important for our whole community, and it's a really important time in our nation. And so I wanted to hear directly from the gay rights activists of New York, to hear what their priorities are, what their biggest concerns are, and to begin to work together to create a legislative agenda to address those concerns.
On the legislative agenda front, this past week was a very big week historically for the gay community. The hate crimes bill ended up passing. It was attached to the defense authorization bill. You were on the Armed Service Committee when you were in the House. You've been taking the lead on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Where do you see that going, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, now that hate crimes has been passed?
Well, I'm actually quite optimistic. I think we have more support than people think we do. I started this process early in the year with an amendment. I wanted to do a moratorium on Don't Ask, Don't Tell for 18 months to give the president and the military time to change the policy. And I started to count the votes. And I didn't get 60, but I was fairly close. And the reasons that a number of the undecideds gave me was, I'd like to see leadership from the military, or I'd like to see leadership from the president. And we're going to get leadership from both, I think, over the next few months. So because I couldn't offer my amendment because I didn't have the 60 votes, I asked the chairman, Chairman Levin, if he'd hold a hearing. And he agreed. And this obviously is the first hearing in 16 years of the policy. And the reason why that hearing is so important, it's going to create the factual evidence, the baseline of information for a national debate. Most people don't know much about the policy. They don't realize it's been in place for 16 years, that we've lost 13,000 service members because of it, about 800 in mission critical areas, which means they can't be replaced. We've lost about 10% of our language speakers, particularly in Farsi and in Arabic. And it's been a very expensive policy. It's cost us about $100 million in replacement recruitment costs. And so when you have a policy that clearly undermines the strength of the military at a time when we're fighting 2 wars and terrorism worldwide, there needs to be a better rationale than the one given. They like to say that it undermines unit cohesion. Well, it actually, having the policy undermines unit cohesion, because what you don't have is the ability of men and women to tell the truth about who they are. And, you know, the whole command structure is based on telling the truth to your commanding officer. So the policy in every way is undermining the strength of our military readiness, undermining the strength of our military, and frankly, I think it's immoral. It doesn't reflect who we are as Americans. So as we develop that record through a hearing, I think we're going to get those last few votes that we need. So once we do that, I think we can offer the bill and have a vote on it, and hopefully we'll be at 60 by then.
People who have been working on this issue, as you mentioned, for 16 years, have said that the president can do some immediate things, like order a stop-loss order so that people aren't discharged, or you know, cut off funding for the area where Don't Ask, Don't Tell is being administered, so that we don't continue to lose people, as you mentioned. Do you think it's accurate or fair for people in the gay community to say, do something now, even if legislation can't be passed right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly a fair argument. I think they can make those arguments, and whether the military or not agrees with them, I'm not sure. I don't know if the stop-loss policy could actually be used in this instance. But I think the president is showing leadership here, because he did mention it in his most recent speech, where he said he will end Don't Ask, Don't Tell in his administration. I think that's a very strong statement from the commander-in-chief. And I think a lot of things are actually happening behind the scenes that perhaps all of us aren't aware of. For example, when that article appeared in Joint Forces Quarterly, that was a watershed, in my opinion. It was an article that was approved by the highest ranking officers in the military to be allowed to be published. It was an article that...
Chairman Mullen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the article basically made the case as to why this policy doesn't work, why it is undermines the strength of the military. It goes into what other nations have experienced when they've gotten rid of similar policies, and that it's had no undermining effect at all in terms of their ability to continue to serve. So I think we're laying the groundwork for this change. And the one thing I've learned in Washington, which is frustrating for me, but it's true, is things take time, and they take far longer than you think they'll take. But I really believe that this president and this administration is committed to repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell and a gay rights agenda. And for all of us, it's frustrating because we want it to happen now, but I do think we have a very good partner in the White House and a very strong sense of leadership on these issues. So I think we will be successful.
You've worked in politics a long time. You grew up in politics from a political family here in New York State, and you've been in the Senate now for 10 months. And one of the criticisms has been on a slew of issues that people aren't sure if you really feel it, because when you were in the House, you represented a different area in upstate New York. But now that you're in the Senate, you've been speaking more forcefully on gay and lesbian issues, on immigration, on gun control. What do you say to some of the folks that say sort of what happened from the time that you were elected to the House in 2006 up until this year when you became a senator?
Well, I think they're just not familiar with my record, because I have a 100% voting record on gay rights issues, and I've supported all these issues. I was interviewed to get endorsed by HRC, and I supported all these issues. I supported repealing DOMA, passing a hate crimes bill, passing an ENDA bill that was transgender inclusive, and repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So my views on these issues have not changed. I've always been a very, very staunch supporter of gay rights.
In New York State, there has been, since the state Senate coup occurred in June, a real back and forth on marriage equality, with the state Senate not bringing the bill up for a vote yet. Governor Patterson said just this last week at the Empire State Pride Agenda dinner that for the November calendar, he wants marriage to be voted on. What is being done behind the scenes? Senator Schumer has talked about calling state senators. Are you reaching out to state senators? You represented upstate New York. Some of the swing votes are in upstate New York. Some of those votes overlapped on your old House district. What's happening in that area with marriage equality here in New York?
Well, I've tried to use my position as a statewide representative to really advocate for this issue, and I've done it through writing letters to colleagues in both the Assembly and the State Senate, and I've done one-on-one lobbying with individual senators, some that you mentioned. I think it's really important that people understand what's at stake here, and having marriage equality in New York is not only the right thing to do, but it's part of a march towards equality for all Americans. We've got 6 states that have already passed it, and New York should be the 7th. I think it's just a matter of time. I think once we have the vote, we can get all the votes we need. I think there are a few people that are undecided still that we can convince. And I am very optimistic that New York will be the next state to guarantee marriage equality.
And to get back just to federal legislation for a second, hate crimes is now passed and will be signed. The Employment Non-Discrimination Act is next up on the sort of timeline agenda of what they're talking about being voted on in the House and the Senate. Gay rights activists here in New York, excuse me, have talked about ENDA just only covers employment and doesn't cover accommodations or housing or other public facilities. And some people have said that we should have an omnibus civil rights piece of legislation, like amending the 1964 Civil Rights Bill to include sexual orientation. Would you be supportive of moving in that direction to include sexual orientation in a broader civil rights bill that would cover the gay community?
I would. I truly believe that this gay rights agenda is the civil rights march of our generation. I think marriage equality, I think repealing DOMA, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, all of that work that we're doing is part of equal rights in America, and it is something that is so important to this generation. I think that kind of bill would be transformational, would be a wonderful opportunity. Whether we have the votes for that kind of bill today, I don't know, but it's something certainly worth fighting for.
And lastly, Senator Kennedy was the gay community's steadfast ally and champion for many, many years. Now the Senate is the last place where we need 60 votes. Do you see yourself as being someone that's going to sort of try to fill that void and step up for the gay community nationally?
I certainly hope so. Those are very large shoes to fill, and no one could ever hope to fill them. But I hope to work in that direction. I really want to be an advocate for all Americans, particularly those who tend to be underserved and those who are usually left out of the national debate. And I do think making gay rights one of our #1 priorities in this country across the board, and truly to be the civil rights march of our generation, is something I feel very passionately about.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm Corey Johnson for Towleroad.com with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.